Ladies and gentlemen, this is the Cannabis Business Panel. This is Mr. Danny Trevino. I'm here. Can I get a round of applause, please, for Danny for showing up? It's easy for me to justify why I do a veterans panel. It's simple for me to justify why I do a music as my weapon of choice panel. These are things that fall naturally into stuff that I do. Now, the Cannabis Business Panel, I was a little like, oh man, what am I going to do here? I mean, everybody knows I'm a fringer, to say the best, you know, and my whole thing has always been entertainment and events. And it didn't take me very long to find somebody who understands from the first person perspective what it's like to be on both sides of the fence in the cannabis industry here in the state of Michigan. So I would like to introduce Danny Trevino from Hydro World, ladies and gentlemen. Mr. Danny Trevino. Danny, I'd like to open it up with just a little bit about yourself. Like, what's going on, man? What do you do? The Hydro World, is that what's up?
That's correct.
I've seen a billboard, haven't I?
You might.
A billboard. Right. I remember it was, hey dude, come over here. This dude's got a billboard.
I like billboards.
Yeah.
As long as I put my face on it, I love it.
Can we get a little history of the start of Danny Trevino and Hydro World, could we please? Would that be appropriate?
Yeah, that would be perfect.
Well, wonderful, thank you.
You want me to go way back?
Yes, sir, and I'm going to turn you up a little bit. Is that okay, everybody? Can I turn Danny up?
Yeah.
Danny, please talk for us, sir.
Hello?
There we go. Can we hear it back there, ladies and gentlemen?
Yeah.
Wonderful. Danny Trevino, please tell us a little about yourself and how you got started with Hydro World and the marijuana business in Michigan.
Okay, well, I'd always been interested in marijuana ever since I've been a kid. There was a seed company that Mark Emery ran back in the day, and he was just like probably like a 5-page. It was a 5-page catalog. I wish somebody still had it. I'd pay big money for it. But I used to open it up, and he had probably like 30 strains in there. Back in the day, it was like, I don't know, sage, blueberry, Northern Lights, AK-47, Purple Haze. There was a lot of original strains, but Mark Emery broke down where they all came from and what they all did and what Cannabis Cup contests they won. And it just, it enthused me so much that I would sit there and just look at all the strains, and I'd think to myself, I'll cross this one and this one, this one and this one. And then, you know, as I got a little bit older, I tried to start growing marijuana, and I didn't really know how. So I put it in, I would put them in cups, put them in the windowsill, and they kept dying on me. And then, so my brother one time, he came to me and said, hey dude, there's this place out in East Lansing, they sell lights to grow this stuff. And I was thinking to myself, well, how many hours do we leave them on? And I was thinking, all right, so I tried to start looking it up, but back then there was no place to really go to learn how to grow marijuana. So you had to get a whole lot of High Times magazines and just keep going through there and see what people were doing, and then you got your start like so. So I started. It took me a while before I actually got it together, and to where I actually could grow something that didn't look like wheat. So for a while I grew stuff and just I wouldn't show anybody because it was horrible. So I ran into all kinds of heat issues and whatnot, but I was so blown away by the whole plant itself that I figured, you know, I'm going to learn how to master this growing. And then I could tell that this is about the time California was doing their thing. They were just starting to get out in the forefront of the fight and the push to legalize marijuana. So I thought to myself, okay, this stuff is probably going to go legal down the road. And I still loved it so much, so I figured the first thing I would do was start selling the equipment, how to grow marijuana. So I started saving up my money. That's pretty much where Hydro World basically started from, was I was trying to get into the industry before it actually went legal. So I was trying to cut corners, get my way in there, and knowing how to grow, did it. So once I had messed up for so long, I finally got it right, and I had some equipment to sell. People would come in, and I'd teach them how to grow. And so, like, my brother-in-law was a prosecutor, and I asked him some questions. I said, bro, if I teach people how to grow, can I get into trouble? Because I just went to the bookstore, and there's all kinds of books. on how to grow, and they're not getting into trouble. So what if I just take one of their books and just say, hey, look, this is what you do. And then he was like, as long as you don't give them the marijuana, you'll be all right. I was like, okay, cool. So I started telling people how to grow, and the word started to spread. So I had, this is prior to the law changing in 2008. So I started building up a clientele. I actually started Hydro World in, I think, 2002. And then by 2008, I was already doing really well. So I was already known in my hometown to go to Danny, he'll teach you how to grow. So I would actually look out at my door and I'd have like 5, 6 people waiting to learn how to grow. And then the law became legal. Well, let me back up just a little bit. I knew the vote was coming. So that's when I put out the billboard. That's when I put out the billboard. And yeah, I did. I put the billboard on and I started learning a little bit about marketing. And I said, legalize, what did I say? Vote yes, proposal 101 or something like that, legalize marijuana. Well, the news scene, and when they went over to talk to me, all my family and friends seeing that I made the front page, and I had so many calls. To this day, I never really got a rest. I had so many people calling me from around the state, from around everywhere, that now that, when I told you guys I'd have 5 or 6 people waiting in line to learn how to grow, somebody said, why don't you do a class? And I was like, So I did a class. I didn't know the turnout would be the way it was, and it was enormous. So the classes took off. So the building I had one section for class, and then the other section was equipment. Once I mixed those two together, I noticed that the class actually, lots of people came there for more information than just how to grow. So they started asking me questions, legal questions. Again, I went back to my bro. I said, bro, like this law, it looked great to me, but it had a lot of questions in it. And he said, Danny, the law right now is like a square block of wood. He said, there's no carvings in it yet, so it's like wide open. I said, sounds like a money maker to me. So I started reading the law. I called the Attorney General's office. At that time, we had a good Attorney General. I called the state police. I called the prosecutors. I called everybody. Nobody could give me answers. So I started making up my own interpretation of what the law meant to me. And I spread that around. And that pretty much, from my view, that started to set the standard of how people were going to interpret the law that was originally written. I think the law was written well. I think that the people who wrote the law have looked at other states and seen what they ran through and try to leave it open so we'd have defenses in law. But in my opinion, law enforcement has no limits. They can create the law, they can create interpretations of the law, and then now what you have is interpretations of the law. So if you're driving around, one officer will interpret the interpretation, and you come to Lansing and the other officers don't, they don't care. So they'll worry about different stuff. But if you go to like Grand Rapids, for instance, they have an ordinance, we have the Medical Marijuana Act, but Grand Rapids will raid you. They won't care about the ordinance, they won't care about anything. They'll charge you like it's never was legal. So backing up, when I was teaching class on how to interpret the law, a lot of it I had to use common sense, and people started pouring in from all around the state. So about a good year went by, about 6 months went by, and I was teaching a class, and in part of my class I would teach what the marijuana is supposed to look like when it's done. And I had a piece of, at that time, the Danny Trevino was called Classics. Didn't really have a name, so I had my own strain, but I didn't have a name on it. Me and my best friend named it Classic because it was like a classic plant. Back then there wasn't a whole lot of strains. So when you got a good strain, you hung on to it. And me and him hung on to that strain, and then one day in class, I handed out a piece of this Danny Trevino, It wasn't Danny Trevino at the time, it was just classics. It's funny that I still have people call it that. But anyways, I sent it around the class, and one of the students got legal there with us. He said, "Hey, I got my card. Do you think I could buy that?" And I paused for a minute, and I was like, "Man, can I do this?" And I went, "Okay, I'll do it." So after class, he came and he bought that from me. And then a few more students said, "I got my card too. Can I buy some?" And I was like, "Yeah, it's cool, guys. Just come in and wait after class." So I had about 3 people. But the next day, they came back. And they came back with a few buddies. So I had 5 people. And I was like, okay, this is cool. About 3 more days passed, and my son called me. He said, "Dad." I was like, "What?" He was like, "There's a line going out the door." And I was like, "Are you kidding me?" He was like, "No, Dad, it's going to the parking lot." And I was like, "Holy crap, do we still got enough?" He was like, "No, we're running out." So here come growers. I've got, what was it, Casey Jones and a White Widow. So the first people were bringing meds to me. So we started, I never meant for it to happen like that. I didn't, Hydro World actually was an equipment store in a college and a place to get legal. And that day I'll never forget that guy came in, because it switched Hydro World all the way over. There were so many people coming in that the people who used to come in and buy the equipment wouldn't come in anymore because there was such a big line for meds. And anyways, I remember the police parking down the street and whatnot, but they never really did anything. So we kept going on, and I was like, okay, cool. I'll get a location away from this spot, and I can still do the equipment, the school, and I'll do the meds out of this location here. It was a different location. But that place got so packed, I did meds out of both of them. And I was like, this is actually turning out okay. I think we're all right. And then more shops started opening up, and it was really comfortable. Like, I don't know how many of you are here from Lansing? Okay, so you guys remember when all the other shops started to open up, and Lansing was like the spot. Everything was comfortable. I remember being pulled over, and I had a whole bunch of plants in the back seat. They were sticking out right here. And the cop looked at me, and I was like, I gotta get back to class, man. I'm teaching class. He was like, okay, well, you got light out. I was like, okay, I'll fix it. He was like, all right, bye, Mr. Trevino. I was like, thanks. So I went back to class. I pulled my plants back out, and everything was good. I don't know why the Attorney General went so hard against us. I can only think that it's he's financially motivated, but that's my opinion. Since then, Hydro World spread. It spread pretty big. It went pretty. It was doing really, really well. I was proud of my team, but you know, when everybody was open, everything was a lot better. So now when I look at it, Lansing's back to a lot of open stores again, but the amount of people who have cards has reduced by 50%. And so I think what happened is a lot of people who got legal in other cities would come into Lansing to get their meds. And now that other cities don't have doctors to help sign, there's limited places that you can actually get legal at. So I think that was the plan of the Attorney General, was to try to bully out doctors, scare them into not signing for medical marijuana certificates, and therefore reduce the amount of people who have cards. That's just my opinion. Since then, we have endured 18 raids and 32 forfeitures. I thought to myself, at 11 forfeitures, ooh, I'm gonna sue these guys, they're gonna get it. So we tried to do the lawsuits, and it took a while before they were actually placed, but then we went and got up to 18 forfeitures. Then we're at 22 forfeitures. And then all the lawsuits were dismissed by the judges. And I was like, okay, they have no limits to what they can do. Like when I'm talking about the forfeitures, I'm thinking to myself, okay, I'm at 15. This can't be legal. I'm gonna go get an attorney and I'm gonna make sure I sue them because this can't be legal. But I'm at 32 and now it's became normal. So if I can go a couple months, then I can take a deep breath and say, hey, I went a couple months without, you know, somebody getting, some part of Hydro World not getting forfeited. So when I was asked to come join this panel and speak a little bit, I was willing to do so because I quit for a while speaking in front of a lot of people just because I'm so busy and I'm wore out. But like if I can help bring awareness to people, I would like to do so. If I can help bring in my part of knowledge that I have to help you guys out, I would like to do so. So basically, well, I didn't know exactly what I was supposed to say when I got here, so I figured I'd just wing it. I was gonna write some stuff down, but it's okay. He said 15 minutes. I was like, I can talk for hours. I like talking, but all right. So now we're basically trying to push to get everything legal. I guess there's a couple of you know ways that a couple groups are trying to push to get everything legal. I back more. Am I legalized? That's more of the style that I like. To me, in my opinion, it brings us back to 2009, Lansing, where everything was comfortable. My opinion, if am I legalized goes well, everything stays towards the citizens. Now, when I say towards the citizens, I want to explain myself a little bit. When I read the law and it says for the people, by the people, it sounds great until you get into court. And then it's the people versus you. And so now you start to look at, okay, well, who are the people then? Because I'm noticing the cops can do whatever they want because the laws protect them. So if you start to notice, okay, well, maybe the police, the judges, the prosecutors, and the elected officials, they're the people. And we're the citizens. When I took a look at it like that, I noticed that a lot of the laws protect them guys. So maybe for the people, by the people, their interpretation means them. They're the people. We're the citizens. So the laws protect them. Because they can get away with almost anything. So when you start to look at laws like freedom of speech, and just things that we think make sense to us, and then you go to court and you're not even allowed to say what you're supposed to say. Like, hey, I got a card. Well, you can't say that. Well, what do you mean you can't say that? You know, I got a card. How can you search me if I got a card? And I don't know if you guys have heard some of my recordings that I put up on my Facebook. It's like I got pulled over by an officer and we had a discussion and he didn't know I was recording him. So I got to ask him a bunch of questions. He actually answered me. So anyways, one of the questions was, I said, okay, he wanted to know where my marijuana was. He said I smelled like marijuana. Well, I always smell like marijuana. You know, he wanted to know where it was at. I told him I don't have any, but I still smell like it. So he wanted to search my vehicle. And I told him no. But he said, well, you smell like marijuana. There was nothing I could do about it. I was like, well, okay, well, let's just suppose you search and you don't find nothing. Then what happens? He said, nothing. I said, well, what happens if you find a little crumb? And he said, nothing. You're fine. You can carry 2.5 ounces. But he was lying because he found a little crumb when he took all my money. I got it back after I sued him, but I still had to go through the process of suing him. So that was what I'm basically, it pisses me off. You know what I'm saying? Because they raided me 7 times in Jackson, but yet they leave some of the other guys open down the street. They get 0 raids. It got to the point in Jackson, they raided me 3 times in 1 week. It got to the point I wouldn't even switch my safe combination. They just would take the card out of their pocket and then they'd open up the safe on their own and just take the money and the marijuana and leave. And as we'd be open, like, we don't have no marijuana or money. So I'd be like, okay, let me make some calls. We'd do it again. About 2 days later, here they come again, do it again. I was just like, this is ridiculous. So I still haven't gotten my money back from Jackson. That's been like the most ridiculous city I've dealt with. One time I had a building in Jackson, and I wanted to check up on it. So I had some trash in my van. My assistant and I pulled into my building that they had already raided 4 times. I took the trash out, I put it in my own dumpster, and the cops pulled up. He said, what are you doing? I said, I'm throwing my trash away. And they were like, well, you can't just pull up into buildings and throw your trash away. I said, I'm pulling up into my building and throwing my trash away in my dumpster. Wasn't good enough. Took my van, took my money, took my meds. Everything was legal. Left me walking. I still don't have that stuff back. It's been a couple of years. So it's basically, if I get a chance to try to tell my stories, get people to vote, and just let them know some of my stories, or give them some type of a direction to go to. There's really not a whole lot you can do other than make up, or go and vote. You gotta vote. We gotta change legislation and keep the pressure on. Because if you don't, they're relentless. They're relentless, and they've got unlimited tools. They've got surveillance, they've got CPS, they'll go to the city, have your house red tagged. They can just cause a lot of pressure. So if this isn't something that you're willing to fight all the way through it, you're gonna get pushed out. Because they'll make sure that they scare you down. They'll call the doctors that you work with and scare them. They'll call the landlords that you rent from and scare them. It's ridiculous what I had to go through to just get to this point right now. So when I got asked to come here, like I said, I didn't really know what I was going to talk about. Pretty much how I started, what I've went through, and where to go. Let me see, I've got written down here, when I started, who this helps. All right, I'm gonna be honest with you. When this stuff started to go legal, I didn't care about it medically because I thought that it didn't help people. I thought people were just messing around. Like, it helps my ankle, I got bad ankles in car accident, and smoking weed. Now I'm thinking, yeah dude, okay, cool. But once I really got into the mix of things, it really does help a lot of patients. Like, I had a lot of MS patients, cancer patients, lupus patients, and like in the beginning, there wasn't a whole lot of medical marijuana like there is now. There was a limited amount of growers. Most of the growers were beginners, and it takes a few years before you can get it right. And sometimes we'd run into bumps in the road where we don't have any marijuana. When them times came, I would have MS patients, cancer patients, lupus patients, patients who have chronic pain. I met a whole lot of patients, but a lot of the main ones at that time were MS, lupus, and cancer, due to the seizures, patients who have seizures. They would like be so adamant about when are we getting more marijuana because it helps them with their seizures. So I started to notice that, okay, this isn't about just weed and selling a bunch of weed. There is a huge medicinal value to this plant. So once I started to focus in more on, I started looking at the medicine companies and how they advertise their pills, You had Rogaine with their medicine company, their stuff they were doing. You have all these pills that and they advertise them on TV, and then they'll give you all the negative symptoms, diarrhea, heart attacks, and everything else. So I did the same type of commercial, but with marijuana, and it worked. I was like, wow, no wonder they make these kind of commercials. And so I started focusing more in on the medicinal value for marijuana. And I started to get a whole lot more support than just people who smoke weed and just want to get high. I started getting the medical community, and they actually started to support me more, so I'm appreciative of that. So I got a lot of medicinal support. But now we're at like a crucial time because we still got law enforcement barking down people's doors. I don't think I ever remember a time in Michigan where so many raids are happening. For a while, I thought they were just picking on me, but
You're right.
Right, that's for a minute. But now I'm looking into, you know, I always check out Steve Green's page, and he's always posting, so-and-so gets raided, so-and-so got raided, so-and-so got charged, so-and-so, and I'm like, man, okay, well, I'm not gonna say it's a good thing, but at least it's not just me all the time, you know, because usually it was like, damn, another one. It's like 18 of them, 18 raids. I was like, okay, these guys have no limit. So, trying to do my part in letting people know, hey, we got a chance to make this more like Colorado, to where the citizens aren't so afraid to have their marijuana. Now we're back to the point where, depending on where you're at, people still are now really secretive about their gardens. Some people are still open. If you live in Lansing, you're a little more comfortable. If you live in Flint, you're a little more comfortable. But if you live like in Grand Ledge, don't pull your marijuana out. They'll chase you down like you're terrorists. They'll come into your house if you've got a grow. The time I was in Grand Rapids, they kicked in the door. And the officers, they actually spoke with me again. And so they said, I was like, what'd you raid me for? They said, marijuana. I said, well, is it legal or is it illegal? He was like, for some people it's legal. And I was like, well, how do you know if this one was legal or wasn't? And he was like, I don't know. And I was like, well, what'd you guys tell the judge to get the warrant? I don't get it. And he was like, marijuana. And I was like, well, oh, okay, but how do you know that this one was legal or illegal? And so when the officer came back, he was talking to me, and I asked him some questions, like, he said, whose building is this? I said, mine. And he was like, whose marijuana is that? And I was like, it's somebody else's. And he was like, well, where is he? I said, he went down there to go get something to eat. He was like, well, why won't he come back in? He said, because you guys are parked all over the place. And he was like, so what? If it's legal, then why wouldn't he show his cards? I was like, because if he pulls up, you're gonna take his truck, you're gonna go back to his house, take his stuff, get some CPS, take his kids, and then sell all his crap on eBay. And then the officer jumped in and said, no, don't, just answer my questions. So he didn't want to hear that stuff. But what was odd was a few days later, they dismissed the case. But still, they ruined the whole garden. It wasn't my garden, but still, they still ruined that garden. And it's just really, really irritating that we have no real protection across Michigan. Lansing, you're safe. Flint, you're safe. Detroit, you were safe. Traverse City, safe. Ann Arbor, safe. Ypsilanti, safe. Jackson is halfway safe. To get some of this legislation to push through, I think it'll benefit everybody the way it did back in 2009, where patients had a wide variety of choice. They could go to different dispensaries, one of their own choice. They can, and the variety of medication was big. So basically, all the people who learned how to grow would bring their meds in. And to me, that was a good thing, because I noticed that financially it helped a lot of growers, like people that were in a jam for money or whatnot. They learned how to grow. And when they learned how to grow, they brought all their meds in and they got a paycheck. So basically, that's what I'm trying to push back for, because to me, it was just, I remember thinking to myself, this has got to be too good to be true. It's like, I've actually got a lot of money. And I was thinking, this can't last forever. And it didn't. So, for the future, I don't know exactly what the future lies and which way it's going to go legal. I'm hoping MI legalized way pushes forward. If you guys are I don't know which ballot you guys are going to sign or which laws you guys want to enact, but I highly recommend MI legalized because I do believe it involves all the citizens. It involves people being able to grow their own in their basement and go back to the shops like it used to be, you know, instead of just major big commercial grows taking over. And that's just not my style. I'm not sure. All right, but if anybody has any questions, I do my best to try to answer them.
Ladies and gentlemen, it's Danny Trevino, Hydro World, guys.
Thank you.
And then, you know, no reason to interrupt, man. That was wonderful.
All right, next time we'll be a little more prepared.
That's great. Thank you very much.
Talking about, so.
One more round of applause for Danny Trevino, please.
Does anybody have any questions? Does everybody?
Gentlemen?
What do you think? You've been, I know you've kind of led and been at the forefront of this whole thing. Do you think that's the reason why they've been after you more than anybody?
Yeah, I think so. I remember one time when they sent out the cease and desist letters. We didn't shut down, the news showed back up. And they were like, are you going to shut down? I said, no, we're not going to shut down. I'd rather challenge them in court. And I think we got a better argument than they do. Because when, like, I took a couple of criminal justice classes, and one of the things they teach you is what is a law. A law is signed by the Senate, signed by the House, and signed by the governor, and posted where everybody can see. Their interpretation is getting everybody into trouble because we don't have, it's not posted where everybody can see. The only ones who understand the interpretation are people who don't grow, like cops and attorneys. So basically, if a family's looking for information on the law, they go back to the law and the interpretation is nowhere to be found. So I figured, okay, well, we'll battle them out in court, and we won. So the judges dismissed it. They appealed it. The second judge dismissed it. We won again. They appealed it. We were supposed to go to court 2 weeks ago. So, but the thing about that is we come back to trial here in Lansing, and we're still open. So it's going to be, and the guys that they're charging still work at Hydro World doing the same thing. So I don't know how they're planning on winning if we get jury. You know, I don't see 12 people convicting our guys here in Lansing when they're still doing the same thing, and Lansing's got shops. I mean, we've got a lot of shops. We're all over the place now, so things are getting back to normal. I'm glad to see a lot of shops open. That may sound crazy from a business point of view, but if you think about it, like 2009, there was 30 shops. All of them did well. 2000 and now up to current date, 30 shops. I'm assuming that their numbers are probably not as strong as they would have been, or as they were back in the day. So when you say why do you think they keep attacking me? The news came in one time, and I started getting calls, and I guess you know, like when they have a television show like soap operas, and then if it's going to be a flash flood, that little strip comes across the top. Well, the strip came across the top, but it wasn't a flash flood. It was Hydro World won't close. So in came a bunch of people again, and then they came and raided us. And I followed the California way, open back up. So I called my people and said, we're gonna open back up. And we opened back up. And everything went good again, because we didn't get raided in Lansing anymore. They raided us in other cities, but it's weird how you can you be legal in Lansing and not in you know, Charlotte? Doesn't make sense, you know? How can you be federally illegal in Michigan, but not federally illegal in Colorado? You know what I'm saying? Like, they've got like, what, 400 shops in the city? Something crazy in Colorado? Come on, man. The feds used to like to say, well, they're under investigation, but we're worried about you right now. But you can't say that anymore, because they got television shows about Colorado marijuana. You can't say they're federally being investigated. Not all 4,000 of them. You know what I mean? You can't federally investigate 4,000 shops, like the plant count. Well, if you go past 100 plants federally, you're going to be in trouble. Well, where are the rules at? Because I just seen a show in Colorado, they got 5,000 plants. And they're moving plants left and right. So how is it that we can get in trouble for past 100 plants, but they can't get in trouble for 5,000 plants? Does this make sense? Well, it doesn't, but but you get where I'm coming from. So if we can get this thing passed fully, I think, man, I see Michigan where Colorado is now, but we have an attorney general slowed us all down. So I really think we would have been the leaders. I seen Michigan controlling everything from the marijuana point of view. I seen us, we had so many growers, there was no way to stop us. We had, like, everybody grows in Michigan. It's like, what do you do for a living? I'm a nurse and a grower. Well, what do you do for a living? I have a daycare and a grow downstairs. It's just, you know, it's like everybody grows. It's like fishing, you know. A lot of people fish, and people grow marijuana because they like to grow it, even if they don't make any money, because it's fun, you know. And you sit there and you grow a plant and you just stare at it for half hour, just looking at it. Go down there and you don't go down there again if you don't want to stare at it. But all right, let me see here. So yes, ma'am.
What advice would you give to someone who might want to be opening a dispensary business?
My advice to people who won't. For 2 minutes. Okay, my advice to people who want to open up. I don't think it's a bad idea as long as you've got enough financial backing to last for about 2 years. Meaning, numbers are slow right now because there's not as many patients. It's harder to find doctors who sign. So, as long as you've got a good plan that lasts a couple years, because back in the day you could open up and you'd have business like that. But now it's not like that. It's more like a regular business. You open up and it takes you a couple years to get it moving. Does that make sense? So like in Flint, for instance, the market was so low as far as how much people would pay for meds. You had to have 65 people come in order to start being profitable after rent, after bills, and after paying 2 staff to be there. So if you're paying 2 staff, you're looking right around 200 to 300 bucks for the day, just staff and rent in a day. If you're not making 300 in profit, then you're going backwards. So if you have only 12 people coming in and you're not growing, it becomes a money pit. But if you can hang in there until the full legalization comes through, I feel like there's going to be another gold rush.
Danny Trevino supports My Legalize, is that what you're saying?
Legalize? Yes.
That's right. Please. You guys heard it here first. Roll the vote. Danny Trevino, Hydro World. Danny, thanks for your time, energy, and effort, brother. Thank you.
Thank you guys. I appreciate it.